Hello, beautiful combabes. I am here today with Sarah Jaffe. Sarah is a journalist who wrote a book called
Necessary Trouble.
Necessary Trouble, Americans in Revolt. Yes, sorry. And who's currently, he's also a journalist, labor journalist. You talk about like loads of stuff. You talk about like unionizing, you talk about work, you talk about automation, basically everything around work. Sarah knows about it.
I try.
And we're here to talk about Sarah's upcoming second book called
Work Won't Love You Back.
Yes. Work Won't Love You Back, which is about the labor of love that we do in the workplace, for instance, when we were expected to work very long hours for very little pay or no pay, under the pretext that we were supposed to like it. And if that resonates with you at all, you should definitely continue watching this video. We are also doing a wonderful little look on Sarah. Doing like a little winged eyeliner, sort of peachy, trendy little look. Yeah.
Made me look fabulous.
Make you look fabulous. I mean, she does look great, to be honest.
It's all her.
All right, combabes, let's get started. Tell me about the book that you're writing.
Oh my goodness. So the book is called Work Won't Love You Back, which anybody who has ever had a job knows is true. And yeah, so it's about this idea of the work we do for the love of it, and how that actually, my subtitle is How Devotion to Our Jobs Leaves Us Exploited, Exhausted, and Alone, which is very dramatic, but also true. And, you know, so...
You love a bit of drama.
Yeah, well, anybody who works in a creative industry, a caring industry, kind of anything these days, right? Like you work in a restaurant and they're like, oh, but don't you love your job? Mm-hmm. Isn't it great to be here? Don't you love smiling at your jerk customers? This is not like a new thing, that there's certain kinds of work that people are expected to do for the love of it. Mm-hmm. But it has become a bigger and bigger part of the workforce, right? Yeah. More and more of the jobs that we have are not factory jobs or coal mining jobs or whatever. They're service jobs, they're caring jobs, or they're like some form of creative job. Yeah. And in those fields, you're more and more likely to be told, like, well, you know, there's a million people who want this job, so you're lucky to have it. Or, you know, you can't, how dare you like ask for time off when you're a carer because your client needs you. Yeah. And how dare you say like, well, I have to get home on time because whatever. Or how dare you be a teacher and like ask for, I don't know, like a raise. Mm-hmm. Because you're supposed to just do this because you love the kids so much, right? Yeah. So, yeah, so this is, I've been working on it for almost 2 years, and I'm in like the final week, so I'm totally stressed. Yeah, writing a book is terrible and it takes forever. In each chapter, I'm talking to a different worker that does a particular kind of labor of love. And I'm including in that like the organizing that they are doing around their work. So for the teachers chapter, I was in Los Angeles during the teachers strike, and I spoke to a lot of teachers, but the one in particular that I spent some time with, we had this wonderful moment where we were sitting in the hallway in the Union Hall because every room was busy because everybody was, you know, making plans for the next day of the strike. Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about her teaching and organizing and all the work that she does in the community and all of this. And then I asked her like last questions, like, what's it been like being on strike? This was like the 4th day of the strike. And she just kind of looked at me and she was like, you know, she's like, I do so much of this, like, and we say like we're striking for our students, which is true. And I do all this organizing in the community with the parents and the students. And on the first day of the strike, it hit me that this is for me, and that that's okay. That like, I'm a single mom and my life is hard and I deserve better, and this is for me. And like we both start crying in the hallway because I was just like, it is for you and you do deserve better. And she's like, I do. And I was like, yes, you know? And so like, I have a bunch of those kinds of moments in the book where these people are organizing. The chapter I just finished writing was on academics, and I spoke with this adjunct professor who teaches at 3 different schools in New York. She's taught at like 5. And at the end of the chapter, the thing that I closed it with was her saying like, I do, 5, 10, 15, 20 hours a week of union work on top of my, 3 different jobs to try to make it better. And people ask me, like, why do you do so much union work? Obviously, you're not getting paid for. And she's like, because this is the only time that it feels dignified.
Oh, God.
And the rest of my job never feels like there's any dignity, but the organizing is where I find the dignity. And so it's like, yes, there are like solutions, but the real solution instead, and the way I'm closing the book is just like, what would we love if we didn't love our work? What would we do if we didn't have to go to a job? And like, mostly that's other people, but also it's like, what would we do if we could do everything actually freely chosen and we weren't gonna starve to death if we didn't work, right? What would we actually choose to do? And we kind of can't know that while we have to work.
Yeah.
The only way we can sort of know that is like working to get more free time so we can have more time to figure out what we do with it. So, you know, the 4-day work week, I have to say that because I'm in England, but also I say that all the time. Right, so it's like less work really is the way that we actually figure out what we would do if we could not work. Even the jobs that we like, and I do like my job, are still work. And somebody's still making money off of what I do, right? There's still exploitation involved.
What really struck me about what you said about that teacher is like, yeah, but we need to learn how to be selfish in our jobs. Yeah. Not selfish as in like, you know, more individualistic or whatever. It's like, we need to know what we're worth. And we are worth to not only have fulfilling jobs, but also, or have fulfilling work, and do fulfilling work, but also like paid for it in a way that is adequate and that helps us, like, you know, that allows us to thrive and survive.
Yeah, there's you know, I'm the first half of my book is all about these jobs that are based in and derived from the unpaid work that women do in the home, right? So a lot of the demands come from wages for housework. That argument about we are not that work is as true of waiting tables or working in retail as it is of being, you know, a mother. All of these sort of expectations that you will just do this because you care so much about other people that yourself kind of disappears. Yeah. That's all super gendered, right? Like that whole expectation, of being, you know, just self-effacing comes from our expectations that women will just do this stuff forever and ever and never need to get paid or even get thanked or even have it acknowledged that it's work at all. Yeah. And then the second half of the book is about creative work, various kinds of creative labor that also hear a variety of, you know, arguments that sound pretty similar. One of the things that strikes me is like, my first half of the book is obviously based on this argument about families and work in the home, but even in like the creative workplace. Like I was talking to video games workers who are in the games workers union here, right, in London. Oh yeah. And all of them are like, yeah, all these companies tell us we're a family. You know, you're a games programmer. You're sitting in front of computers all day. Yeah. I don't know how familial that is, but like they all hear it. We're all a family. This one company that fired this guy recently, right? They had a big campaign about it. On its website, it literally refers to itself as a family, which also is such a terrible word. Why would you ever coin that word? Family? That sounds like, but right, it's literally like, oh, we're a family. We're a family, therefore you should work 100 hours a week when we need to get this game out, right? Because the games industry was just notorious for this, like, they call it crunch, right? Where they're just like, work forever and ever and sleep at the office, especially when the game's about to come out. And then as soon as the game comes out, they lay off half the company. And this one guy said to me, like, you know, your family doesn't lay you off twice a year. But then, like, the language that comes from, like, the artist is just this super romanticized, like, individual person who just, like, does all of this genius work by themselves. And
doesn't need to eat.
Doesn't have any help. Yeah. One of the things I got into in my art chapter was, like, the degree to which, like, so many of these, like, big name famous artists, like, don't do their own work really anymore.
Oh God,
they have like somebody in, you know, wherever, you know, the folks who do the Art and Labor podcast, which is excellent. were telling me about their various work in the art industry. And Lucia used to work for Jeff Koons, and by work for Jeff Koons, it's like literally sit at a desk in a factory, like he calls it a factory.
Oh God.
That is, you know, and there's just like a bunch of assistants mixing paints and things in this room that they call a factory. And apparently a bunch of the workers in Jeff Koons' factory tried to organize, and they all got fired. Because of course. Because we know how this works, right? This is just like work. Mm-hmm. And it sucks.
And you know, there's also the trope of like, you work for exposure, you work, you are expected to work, especially, I mean, you know, in the acting industry, there are, I've gone to conferences where people are like, you shouldn't, you know, rebuff working for free is great, it helps you build your credits, it helps you build your CV, so that you can be more employable later, you know, and it's like, please work for free now, so that later you can be paid like a half a salary that you would have earned 10 years ago. I mean, most of the actors that I meet run entirely on hope. It's like, you know the playing field, you're not allowed to change it or ask for more.
Right, exactly. That's the terms of the deal, and everybody who got famous has gone through it. They paid their dues, why don't you? And all this ends up doing is justifying like a two-tiered workforce, right? Where like one tiny group of people makes tons of money and gets to be famous, and you know, you see their faces everywhere, and so you're constantly reminded that like that's possible, right? You could be the next person with a breakout Netflix show or something, right? But in practice, it's almost certainly not going to happen.
Oh yeah.
So you just are doing the work for free, and a whole bunch of the industry runs off of the people who will do it for free.
This idea of work, of labor of love, it's justification for what has happened in terms of like the change in capitalism, right?
Right. Exactly.
It's because the industry is like that that we say, you know, artists need to run on hope. Like there's always been this trope, but now it's even more prominent in the industry. So what is currently the way that people are organizing for a 4-day work week?
So you have people making demands in all sorts of ways in, you know, union contracts and things about what working hours can look like. And that can happen in a variety of ways, whether it's, you know, when you're, you know, in an industry that has like automation, things like that, you can fight for the, you know, job loss to be distributed, and like everybody works a little bit less. You can fight for, in the US there were campaigns around scheduling laws. So like retail workers have like terrible insecure schedules, right? Like every week people would be on for a different thing. Here you have 0 hours contracts. And what people were doing in a couple places in the US, they've passed these laws that require the retail industry to give people their schedule a certain amount of time in advance, to not schedule people for like a closing shift one night and then opening the next morning. If they have on-call shifts, they have to be paid for them. If they get called in or sent home early, they need to be paid for that time. Ways to regulate their time so your boss can't just like jerk you around when it comes to your timing, right? So there's stuff like that. There's all sorts of ways that people are making time an issue again. And then there's just like straight up like unionizing your, you know, your labor of love. So always join a union. Over here in the UK, you are lucky and you can just join the union without having to like organize your entire workplace, which is great. You should do that. Organizing your entire workplace is also good. And it definitely makes your union more powerful. But like, the real question of this whole thing is like fundamentally like recognizing that we're workers and that somebody is profiting from our work. And so to get to a real understanding of like organizing the working class, we have to sort of understand the ways in which we're exploited. And so one of the things that I sort of start the book off with and finishing up with is like, we're in a moment of class recomposition, right? So what the working class looked like 40 years ago is no longer what it looks like now. This is one of the challenges for labor in the last election, is like figuring out how to bring these two things together. But, you know, I would say that like one of the things that the working class is now organized around is this idea that you should do your job because it's fulfilling, and not that you're doing your job because the same way as the coal miner would, because it's how you eat.
Yeah. So on top of like organizing for your rights, you also organize for your life in general.
Yeah, exactly. We're organizing as people who have lives that happen outside of work. And so what my friend Jane McAlevey always calls like whole worker organizing. When you think about the most effective organizing, it's often not just about people's wages.
So this was Sarah's beautiful little contoured open-ish look. You do have cheekbones!
It's amazing. That never happens.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming to talk to me.
Thank
about
you.
Labor and work. Any final closing comments?
Join a union. Work sucks. Do less of it.
Yeah. Abolish work.
Exactly.
And we'll end with that. Bye, combabes. See you next time.